Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Chris Legaspi, and in today's episode, we are going to talk about designing hair shapes. We're going to talk about some ways about how to really draw hair using predominantly shape and design. And in my mind, they're quite synonymous, they're quite related. And hair is one of those things that can be so complex. It's often you almost have to use design, especially if you're a realist or want to do any type of realist type illustration and things like that. And before we begin, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my free Insiders Club. Insiders Club members get first access to these weekly live streams, and you also get access to other live events, and you get discounts on courses and programs, along with access to free lessons and other free content available only to subscribers. So all you have to do is go to www.drawwithchris.com, and there you can enter your email and you'll be good to go. Okay, so we're going to begin this class by talking about the tools first. It's going to be a little bit of a review as well. Then we're going to go through some the actual drawing process of and ways to draw hair, and I'll show you some examples as well. And then we'll get into some demonstration where I'm going to break down and actually demonstrate the process of drawing hair using shape and design. And then we'll get into the homework. Okay, first let's talk about tools. Now, a lot of the tools that we're going to use are exactly the same tools that I covered in the previous live streams. I already did 4 live streams, um, 4 of these live classes on shape and design, specifically how to see shapes, in faces and figures and landscapes. So you definitely want to review those, especially the first one, how to see shapes and faces. So the tools are going to be pretty much the same, except there are going to be a couple differences. We're going to look for corners. We're going to look for straights. We're going to look for the extremities, the top, the bottom, the left, and the right. And most specifically, we're going to look for extremities because we'll go back to that in a minute. But extremities is one of the things that's going to help us to handle detail. And the reason why I keep driving this point home is that because corners, straights, the extremities, and things like simplified geometry is what's going to give us the silhouette, or also known as the contour, the outer shape, the general mass, the outer shape. And really, and when you're drawing hair, because hair can go all over the place, really the silhouette or the contour is king. So that's one of the things that we really got to get right away is the contour. And here's an example by Charles Barg. We're going to revisit this example again because it's such a wonderful demonstration of this process. You know, none of this I invented. I just kind of applied. This is realist philosophy, European academic realism that came from the Renaissance. So none of this is new. None of it is mine. I just, applied it to my work and sharing my experience. But as you can see here, this is by Charles Barg. Comment below if you have this book or maybe you have seen these diagrams. But this is part of his book, the Charles Barg Drawing Course, and you can see in the hair on the left here. On the right is a drawing of a plaster cast of a sculpture, so it's already simplified, but that makes it great to study. And you can see how the beautiful use of corners here and here on the left. You can see the beautiful use of corners here on the beard. Nice simplification, the straight, the corner. So all of these things help us to define the silhouette because the contour is king for something as complex as hair. And here you can see he clearly mapped out the extremity, the top, the bottom, and specifically of the hair, you can see, okay, well, he said this is the leftmost part of the hair, the rightmost part, the bottommost part. So all of the same tools apply, but in this for drawing hair specifically, it's going to be very, very important. And what you want to do, just like Charles Bargue did here, if you notice on his drawing on the left, this initial lay-in, he ignored the details, right? He ignored the details and didn't care about the little bumps and bruises, right? Not bumps and bruises, bumps and lumps, right? All these little busy things. He just kind of went, nope, whoosh, 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 straight shape first. Establish the shape. Contour is king. Here's just a quick look at another example by Bargue. This is also from his book, and this is probably a life drawing from a model, but you can see the beautiful, clear, you guys see that? How he clearly started to sketch the contour first using corners, straights, right? So even at the front, he made this big mass of hair. He ignored the details first and worried about the contour. So another great example by Bargue. Contour is king. So when you approach something like this, although a ponytail is sort of like a hair kind of lumped together, it binds the hair on the top of her head right into a nice clean uniform shape, which is what we want. But then you see these little strays, these little strays on the side and things like that. You want to be disciplined enough in the beginning at the bottom here, disciplined to ignore those at the beginning, because just like Bargue, we want to get the straights, the corners, the geometry, and the contour. We want to nail the contour first. So if I were to analyze this, I would just go right through on the side, right through. Just ignore all of these little wispy individual strands and details and just focus on the contour. In this case, there's a negative space we're going to talk about as well. And even these little details within the ponytails, you want to just think about the contour at first, establish that first, because that's going to be really the foundation, the rock that your hair drawing is going to be built upon. Okay, so how do we handle detail, complexity? Because you're like, well, Chris, not everybody's going to have a ponytail or a neat haircut. Sometimes we're going to have to draw some crazy hair, some wild hair, flowing hair. How do we handle all of this detail, Chris? Well, all the tools are exactly what we're going to use. The tools all the way back from the first lesson on faces. We're going to look for the extremities. So extremities are important because not only do we need the top, right, and the side of the mass of the hair, the bottom, in this case, just focusing on the hair, little strands there, but we want also each little section, because sometimes we're going to have to, make little smaller shapes, smaller sections, lumps and clumps of hair that go together. We're going to need the individual extremities of each strand, of each of these clumps. And then we're also, because hair is organic, we're also going to need to understand how to make straights and corners out of curves. And to do that, we're going to use the apex of the curve. So we're going to review that. Just quickly here, on the side of my note. So if we have a curve, right, if we want to find the corner of this curve, what we need is the apex. And the apex is the peak of the curve. That's where the curve reaches its highest point before it changes direction. So let's follow this here. So this curve goes up, right, from the bottom all the way up, curves up and to the right, and then eventually it'll start to go down. It'll start to go to the right and down. Now, where is that point? Is the apex. So it's something that you can, it's a geometrical term. It's a math term, but you can see that in this example, this point here is where this curve starts to change direction. So if we were going to make a corner, this is more of an extreme corner, we'd want to do that. And of course, if we want more realism, more detail, and if a curve is very dramatic, so we're going to need to do that as many times as it takes to find the apex. So from here to here, right, that's pretty dramatic. So we can choose to make another apex from where this curve starts to change direction. And for me, it's right about here. So now I have, and same here, we're going to do it on this side. It's right about here for me, my initial instinct. So now I'm able to box or corner a round thing, make a corner out of a curve. So we do that with the apex. So let's look at this wonderful, this is by Bernini. And I actually, this isn't my photo, but I actually saw this in real life. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a little bit bigger than life size. And it's the first time I ever saw Bernini. He's one of my favorite artists when I first started to get into, seriously started to get into art. And when I saw this in person, I first of all, I couldn't believe it was the real thing. I was in shock because I've always dreamed of seeing a Bernini. I've never been to Europe, so and when I saw it, you know, I was almost brought to tears because it, you know, when you see something so incredible, like it's almost like I don't want to. I felt like it wasn't a human being who made this. It was just so incredible. But yeah, that's the effect that seeing art in person has for me, anyway. Comment below if you have seen this sculpture or a fan of Bernini. So what are we doing? There's a complex thing. I know it's snakes, but you know, let's pretend it's hair. Okay. So we need the extremities. We got that. There's one. There's one. I think this is the rightmost point. It's pretty close to this one. This is the bottommost point of the front of the hairs right here. So we got the extremities. Now what we need to do is there's so many curves, we need to start to box and make corners out of these curves, turn some of these curves into straights just to help us nail the silhouette first. And we do that by looking at the extremities of each individual section. So for example, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Okay, we have a section here on the right, close to his mouth. I see a section here on the opposite side. There's a section here, there's a section up top, section here at the corner, this face of the snake. So these sections have their own extremities. So let's look for them. So, okay, so this is the extremity here, this extremity at the bottom, this extremity at the top. The inside is his face, so we have that. This is the extremity of that. That's basically a corner, curve. So I'm going to corner it out, make it into a straight. That's a corner right there. So that's just my initial, remember, contour is king, silhouette is king. So this section here, right above it, so that's an extremity, that's an extremity, that is, and this inner extremity is where it meets his face. So 1, 2, 3, and then back down. That's another section. So for something as complex as this, you're going to need sections. And you might be thinking, oh, what about the little individual hairs? Well, we'll cover that next when we talk about negative space. So this snake section on the upper left, extremity, curve, remember curve, apex of the curve. It's a really dramatic curve. Apex corner where the curve is. So this section has an extremity, this little section here, and then this lower section, we can totally just kind of group and mass that together. But just keep in mind that every little part has its own extremity, and then things that are very curved like this, we really have to, we really have to practice, um, and understand and learn, develop our skill to see the apex of curves so that we can accurately make corners from them. Okay, let's talk about process. So really there's a very simple 4-step process. Number one, we define the silhouette first. Contour is king. We use the corners, extremities, the straights, define the define silhouette. Step two is then we kind of make the secondary shapes, right? Major shapes first, secondary shapes second, right? Obviously, minor shapes, major and minor, right? That's the core of my philosophy. And um, I call these clumps. Clumps are clumps of hair. They're basically masses of hair. So we got to learn to take some of the smaller hair, the wispy hairs, just like we saw with the snakes in the Bernini sculpture. We want to kind of mass them together, group them together. So we look for the individual clumps. And then step three, we look for the negative shape. So we'll look at some examples, but negative shapes help us to add detail. And finally, the last step is now you can add the detail. You can add the wispies, you can add a few stray hairs and things, you can add highlights and little things like that, texture. That's when you do that, all the way at the very end. So these two examples here, on the left is a sculpture, and the right is by J.C. Leyendecker, obviously one of the greatest illustrators of all time. And the reason why I keep bringing up sculptors, and specifically for hair, for this lesson, is that sculptors have to group hair. There's no way you can sculpt hair. Even if you look at the Daphne, or is it Persephone, Apollo and Persephone by Bernini. Incredible, seemingly the most delicate branches and leaves, right? But even he had to work in groups and masses. So sculptors have to use this technique. And secondly, in terms of 2D artists, illustrators, we have to do this too, because number one, we don't have time. Most illustration work, at least the genres that I'm familiar with, are paid work, they're client work, and they always have deadlines, so we don't have time. And it's just a bold graphic read. Look at the strong graphic read, and that's, to me, that's important. That's king. Silhouette is king, right? You can see here in this example, beautiful use of silhouette in the sculptor, right? Individual clumps, but he's like, nope, nope, nope. Silhouette, group, silhouette, even the beard. Nope, nope, nope. Silhouette, 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 silhouette. Nope, nope, nope. And then you can see on the Leyendecker, there's no doubt in my mind. There's a little bit of wispies in the front, right? But that came at the end. You can clearly see the sharp silhouette. Okay, clumps of hair. Clumps of hair, just masses of hair that we got to group together. We break it down into smaller groups, but even the smaller groups also have the same rules of silhouette, corners, straights, right? Never draw individual strands. You only do that at the very end. So clumps, this is, again, obviously Michelangelo's Moses, incredible marble here. And look at the beautiful clumping beard, just outstanding. Comment below if anyone watching, have you ever been to the Sistine Chapel in Rome? Have you ever seen this? God, I would love to visit someday. So I know it's beard, but look at the beautiful clumps, mustache, clump, even this individual hair, clump, right, on his head. This is by Leyendecker on the right. You can see the little girl. Yes, there are nice strands, but again, that came at the end. So he nailed the outer shape, right? Like we saw in his previous example. he is hyper focused on the outer shape, the contour, the silhouette, but then there's individual clumps, right? There's a mass here, little mass on the bottom, little mass here at the bangs, little mass here, that's a clump of hair. Same with this bang in the front. It's also a clump of hair with a little detail and filigree at the end. So once you nail your silhouette, now it's time to go to the smaller groups of hair known as clumps. Negative space. Well, we can't, a lot of times, we can't ignore hair details, obviously, and but we can't draw individual hairs. So what do we do, Chris? Well, one way to handle hair detail, besides massing them together into secondary masses known as clumps, is to actually cut out negative space. Negative space is a great way to quickly add detail to your hair without driving yourself nuts and drawing individual strands and ruining the graphic effect, ruining the silhouette. So here we have two examples by Alphonse Mucha. And on the left is one of his posters. On the right is actually some of his more fine art, more of his gallery work. Mucha was mostly known for his posters, but he did some excellent murals. He's some wonderful. The Slav epic is probably his biggest legacy, really, aside from his posters. It's a giant set of murals, giant paintings. And so on the left, this is obviously you can see all the cutouts, the negative space cutouts. Obviously, this is a graphic treatment, but there's nothing. Just like Leyendecker, he started graphic and then he added little details at the end. Same with Barg. Barg is a realist. You don't draw individual strands. You draw the contour. You draw the clumps and the details you cut out with negative space, and then you suggest individual details on top. That is the game right there. So an example of negative space here by Mucha on the right. It's one of his fine art paintings. And look at this big mass of hair on this dark-haired girl. Right? Mucha was not only a fine artist, but an illustrator. So he knew the value of the contour. But look what he does here on the inside. Cuts out a negative space. Same here. There's a little tiny one here. I don't know if you guys can see it. Little tiny one here at the bottom of the hair. Even the little girl, this little tiny one in here, in her hair. But it's up to you. You can put as many as you want or as few as you want. But again, it's just a quick, nice way to add detail and maintain the contour, because contour is king. And finally, the last step is to add the detail, add the texture, add the little wispies, the strands. Obviously, now is the time, right? You got the contour, it looks solid. The graphic read is strong. You got the secondary masses, the clumps. They're looking good, they're orderly. And you cut out negative space. Now it's time to add the detail, actually make it look like hair. You don't want it to look like a big, paper cutout, right? Like a Matisse, as realist illustrators, you do want detail. Obviously, I'm not saying never put detail, but save it for the end. Save it for the end. Just like one of the great masters, Bouguereau here on the left. And if you look at her hair, it looks absolutely real. Bouguereau is one of the greatest realists of all time. So absolute realism here, but look at the graphic quality. Look at the graphic. When I look at this, and I think if you look at it long enough, you can go, oh yeah, it's basically this, right? It's basically a big dark mass, right? And then at the end, he goes, boop, 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 boop. He does it, obviously he does it with care, but that's the time to add the texture and the detail. and the highlight here. And there's a little negative space cutout. You see that? Little negative space cutout right here. Boom. All of these things are just effective ways to suggest detail. And the lion decker on the right, look at this outstanding silhouette. This is, you know, 100% focus on the silhouette by Lion Decker. And then when he's done, he adds his clumps, adds his negative space, and then adds the little wispies, right? Boop, boop, boop. Little wispy here, boop. You know, little filigree here, detail, accents. This is the time. Nail the silhouette first, and you can have a lot of fun with your details. If you do it the other way, you're going to be in a world of hurt. World of hurt. If you start with it, if you draw hair like this, ah, ah, strand, you're going to be in a world of hurt. Do it like the greats that came before us, like Bouguereau, like the Lion Decker. Save that for the very end. Suggested. So I'm gonna do some demonstrations, and we're gonna start from easy to hard. So just the hair study. I'm not gonna draw her face, but obviously I need at least the contour, the silhouette of her face. I'm just right now just kind of ghosting in some hatch marks just so I know, okay, where I'm at in my drawing. I can't just you know, if I want my drawing to have some accuracy, I can't. So it's probably not going to be the sexiest head study. In fact, I know it won't, but it will be a nice hair study, at least the hair shape study. So I just need to know where I'm at with this head before I get to the hair. Okay. Okay. So extremities, corners, straights, clumps. Da 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 da. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. All right. The top of her hair is clearly here. The bottom is clearly here where her collarbone is. Same with the left. The right, there's obviously one by her ear, and then there's one on the lower left corner. You guys see that here? Her left, our right, excuse me. So just kind of ghosting in that little mark, this little note to self. That's where my extremity is. All right, so sorry, on the right, it's here. Okay, okay, so we're good. Let's see if I can nail that contour. So the top has a nice curve. I'm gonna kind of give it a gestural kind of thing. Her hair has a strong part. I'm trying to decide whether I should, yeah, let me just include that. Right, rounding that corner first, just like the Barg, just like the Lion Decker. We want to establish our silhouette first. Obvious straight, and rounding this interior corner, concave corner. Now we have some stuff to think about, right? We have at the bottom of her hair here, we got some things to think about. So what are the extremities? There's one here, one here, one here, one here. So I could choose to, you know, pick out clumps. So I'm not going to do that yet. I'm just going to group it together for now because I want the contour first. On the left side, her right, straight there. And I'm gonna just ignore this for now. I'm gonna cut that out later because I really want the silhouette first. Beautiful curve here, so I have to use my skills to corner that curve, use the apex. Interior, the bangs. So that's a clump. The bangs are the clump of the mass of the hair, but I just want to indicate that nice, beautiful long curve there. All right, so got a rough silhouette. Let me just ghost in the hairline real quick here. And the ear's going to be useful. Okay, so let's look for some clumps. The bangs are a clump. And you have some wispies and some strands, but to me it's a clump. This is a secondary clump. And then it splits into little fork, and there's another clump behind it. It's just smaller masses of hair, and then I'm going to I'm starting to lose that silhouette integrity. Oh, there's a bit of negative space. Can I cut that out? Yeah, why not? See that little bit of negative space here, right above her collarbone on the left side here. So yeah, why not cut it out? I'm going to make a design choice and start to round that curve a little bit and turn it into a clump. And then on the right side, there's a clump in the front and a clump behind it. This kind of splits into two. If you want, you can split it up or simplify it. The beautiful thing about hair, what I enjoy about it so much is really hair has a high margin of error because you don't have to, it doesn't have to have the perfect. You don't have to perfectly match the hair to get the likeness or anything. No one's going to say, "Oh, that's not Margot Robbie anymore," because those bangs aren't drawn like hers. Unlike drawing features and things, you have a high margin of error. So I feel pretty good about that. It's rough. It's rough. I could clean it up, but I'm going to move forward here. And yeah, and then if I wanted, now I can add the details, right? Things like that. Now it's the time to do that. Okay, we have a mail here. Let's just quickly, just gonna ghost in my, so for homework, when you do your uh, head study from a model, from reference, uh, think of it as, it's basically just a proper head study, except if you're going to focus on practicing your skills with hair, um, you can just kind of leave out the features. I'm just giving myself indication as to, so I know where I'm at. Um, um, but you don't have to take it that far. Remember the Barg examples, or Barg example. You can see. Okay, anyway, I'm drawing way too much now. So extremities, top, left, right, bottom. Clearly, the top is this peak of the hair here, this big mass of hair. On the left, it's the other peak there. As it curves down. On the front, I think it's the corner right here, right above his eyebrow there. So that's gonna need some design. We're gonna have to go in there and design that. Can't just draw the strands, not yet. The bottom is clearly below his ear. He has short hair, so that's the end of his hair. His hairline's the end of his hair here, and the hairline here. Again, the hairline luckily doesn't have to be too perfect. So your best guess for now will do the job. Let's see. So we got the silhouette. Step one, establish the silhouette. The contour is king. Let's talk about some clumps. So he has a big clump, big massive hair up top here. But I'm pretty much, a lot of it is in shadow. So I'm pretty much okay with it for now. It's got some smaller details at the front. We're not going to worry about that. Now, where we need design is on the right side, right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group all of this into a shape, which kind of already done. Remember like how Lion Decker did? He grouped it into a big shape. And then you go in and add your negative space. And then you add your secondary clumps. And then there's a little little detail shape because this still, it's a male with short hair. So it's quite simple, but you know, um, obviously if you're new to this concept of drawing with shapes and design, you're gonna need some practice observing first, which is what these live lessons are for. Yeah, so I feel pretty good about that. I can now I'm ready to add right detail, texture, highlights, and all that good stuff, the fun stuff that we save to the end once we do the hard work. All right, here's a hard one. Here's a hard one, Wonder Woman here. So let me just sketch her face real quick. Loosely gesture. So I need to know where her ear is, center line, just the position of her head. It's not a, a portrait, it's not a head study, it's more of a hair study, but I need to know where I'm at roughly. And she's wearing the headband thing, Wonder Woman headband thing. So that's hides a little bit of the hair, but you can see the top of the hairline right there, side of the hairline right there. All right, so now we got a big old mass of hair kind of blowing in the wind, big beautiful hair. Um, Superhero, some of us are going to be needing to draw these things on the regular. So how do we handle this, Chris? Well, what are the tools? Extremities, corners, top, side, side. There's a little clump. I'm going to ignore that for now. Corner, bottom. So I think that looks pretty good to me. Now, straights, corners. There's this nice straight happening here. Boom, straight. And then it goes into a clump. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down from that corner. There's a corner here. You guys see that on the left? So boom, boom, corner there. I'm going to go down from there. Go down. There's another clump. I'm going to use that and cut out the negative space right here. Right here, there's a clump and a negative space on the left. You see that? And then there's some wispies and smaller clumps and another clump at the bottom and another meets another clump and creates a negative space right here, a negative space on the bottom there, close to her chest. And just gonna, this part really doesn't matter. The interior doesn't matter. Again, hair has a big room margin for error because it allows you to be able to design it. So on the side, we got lots of little wispies. I think I'm going to ignore the wispies on the right side here and just go boom, straight down from where I'm at, straight down. So I'm looking at this will be this area right here will be the rightmost, then the bottom where shoulder will be the bottom, and then I'm going to be here already in my drawing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go here to the side, to down, to where it meets her shoulder, and that's it. That is my initial contour, my initial silhouette. Now, obviously, we got some work to do. This is a hard one. It's one of the hard ones, so we got some work to do. All right, now let's look at the secondary masses, the clumps. There's a clump here, creates somewhat of a negative space. I'm going to go ahead and just ignore that because what I want to do is eventually this, follow this. Let's save that for the end. I just want to give you a sneak peek. Then we got some stuff happening here. You know, I could add more curves, more hair, exaggerate, do that, play with that, cut out the negative space. Make sure it follows the rhythm though, right? I don't just randomly, right? No, no, no. Design first. This line is no accident. It flows from this corner down. It's a gesture line. It's a rhythm line. This flows here. This negative space picks up here. The corner picks up at the negative space. This design flows back towards her. This curves down and to the left, leading into the clump. So, you know, design first, draw with design with shape. Be very conscious of your shape. Don't just randomly put stuff down. At the bottom, that little triangle, negative space. And again, I have opportunity to design, balancing C versus straight. I could have went like this. I could have went like this. I could have went like this. But I think none of those are as sexy as C versus straight or C versus S. Yeah. Contrast, counterbalance. That's design. C versus straight. Little tiny negative space, just to give me some flavor. A little bit of detail. That's an easy detail add. That's a no-brainer. You know, that was easy to find because the hard work on that side is done. I just got to go on this side. So before I do the wispies, the individual hairs popping out, I'm just going to kind of group and design and kind of mass, right? She has a lot of stuff happening here on her rights, on her left, our right. We have a lot of this, right? We don't want that. We don't draw like that. Not, I mean, you can, nothing wrong with that, but I think there's more efficient ways to get the realism that you want. So, you know, design, rhythm, repetition, design, rhythm, you know, repetition, rhythm, big, middle, small, contrast, see that? You don't just randomly, bah, 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 or, no, no, design, big, middle, small, rhythm, echo, boom, 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 contrast, da, 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 da. So it's up to you. This is up to you, but they both work. Okay, so the hard work is done. Now I can add the wispies, just like Leyendecker. Add the and the you know, whatever. It really doesn't matter right now. The hard work, is done. The read is there. The silhouette is there. We can zoom out, and it'll look like a mass of hair that's also made up of individual smaller sections of hair. So the read is there. To me, the read is the win. The silhouette is, and silhouette helped get me there. So for homework, definitely hair takes practice. I'm kind of going through it quickly, trying to make it fun, but it's, if you're not trained to see shape, number one, if you're not trained to think in shapes, it's tough. It's a bit of a mindset shift. But probably if you're watching this, you're whether you're new to me or not, you're probably already starting to move in that direction. So what I recommend is to do some tracings. Take photography, put some tracing paper on top, and then kind of do what I did here earlier, and just kind of find the extremities, the corners, the straights, see if you can find areas to cut out negative space and things like that. So do some tracings, and make it as graphic, just like the Barg, make it as graphic and as sharp, focus on the silhouette. So do a couple tracings of photography. And then do studies of plaster or sculptures. Plaster are copies of sculpture, so sculptors, marbles, things like that, or plasters like the Barbs, the Bernini. Bernini's tough. Bernini's tough. You know, you may want to scale back to do a Roman or a Greek. Well, Greek is too far back, so maybe a Roman, you know, pre-Renaissance. Bernini's tough, but if you're up to the challenge, take on the Bernini. Michelangelo is fantastic as well. So do a couple of hair studies. You know, either look at the sculpture from life or from reference, and you know, try to do hair studies based on the sculpture, and then do a line decker or some Mukas if you're a Muka fan. Look at some of his more painterly work. John Sargent, also another great realist to look at. I just suggest line decker because he's, you know, everybody knows him and lots of his work is available, easy to find. So do some studies from line decker, and he will, you know, if you take your time and actually try to copy and understand him, you will start to train your eye to see shape. So that's why I recommend line decker. And then once you go through that process, then actually take on the model, you know, draw from the life model or the reference as well.